Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to tonight's program, Here to Save the Day, question mark. My name is Sanne Helwers. I'm a program maker at Studium Generale of the TU Delft. And at Studium Generale we try to tell stories that invite you to critically reflect or critically self-reflect and stimulate social awareness about all sorts of topics in society, but mostly there where there is friction. And today we have a program, and this started from two different stories. First was a story about an article that was written by TU Delft journalistic platform Delta. And it was written about 3 students from TU Delft who went to Ecuador to a project on climate change. And the project was a great success for all parties. But in this article, it was portrayed as if they were white saviors, and the internet took issue with this article. And secondly, there was the story, and it was the performance by Omid. And I don't know, I see some faces who were there already. Maybe some people were going to see Omid after this program. But these were the 2 stories that we started with to make this program. And for those who haven't seen Omid, maybe you can tell very briefly what was the most important feeling or thought for you to make your performance. And I'm going to give you the mic because otherwise we can't have the order.
Oh yeah, it's working. Hey, so yeah, they are very similar, familiar faces. But is anyone gonna see it after this talk? Oh, okay. So I don't spoil it. Yeah. But yes, like the performance, Alive Unborn was actually my graduation project last year when I graduated from my master, which was called artistic research. So I had a research question, but then I had to tackle it in an artistic way. And my artistic question was how to make performances or how to use performance art in creating resistance against global capitalism. So that was like the general, like the research question that I'm still busy with. But this performance came after 1 year of research about capitalism, what it's doing to the world, what is happening to us, what is happening to individuals in this world, this schizophrenia that they refer to it from capitalism. Is it real or is it not? So then I tried to make it in a very short, like, art performance in half an hour with these interactions and also with the music. So like, yes, just maybe like this critical understanding of the late capitalism, but like it comes from also personal place of me studying in the Netherlands, going through different sort of discrimination. Even the fact that I am here, I had to pay more than other European students. So non-EU students have to pay more, no matter what is happening in their country or what's happening in their economy, while the colonial past actually dismantled a lot of economies around the world. And then again, those students come here to make universities diverse and inclusive, and then they have to pay more. So that's, for me, was a neo-colonial relationship of the Netherlands and other parts of the world. So basically that, I think. So like with positioning myself in the world that I am here as an Iranian artist and how to make work and how to understand the context of the Netherlands, I think this work is actually my exploration of also understanding the economic relations of nowadays with the history of slavery and the capitalism, which is a racist system in itself. Otherwise, how can you make someone or put someone in an inferior position if you don't think they're worthless of that? So it goes back to Black Marxism. Yeah, it's becoming too political now, and I'm gonna get arrested. And yes, now, so yes, that's it. I think more or less. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for you that you watched it, and yes, I will see you later. And yes, enjoy the rest of the.
Thank you, Omid. Yeah. Well, so Omid, Yeah, no, you can go. You can get prepared for your next performance. Thank you, Omid. Yes. So these were the two stories that led us to the question, can we do any good with all good intentions? Coming from a Western ex-colonizing country, can we do good? And how can we do good? Because sometimes all of our biases and blind spots leading from our privileges hinder our efforts. And we're going to dive into our own perspectives, into our own biases, into our own blind spots, to just get a bit aware of that, because it all starts with awareness. And to get you in the mood, we have, someone else is doing, perfect. Such service. We have two statements. Doing good starts from personal interest. What's in it for me? Who agrees? Raise your hand. I agree. Okay, there are not many people who agree with that. We also asked this students of TU Delft campus, and the next slide. This was approximately 50-50, but most people also said no, it does not start with what's in it for me. And the second statement is, true altruism invites you to step out of your comfort zone. Who agrees? Oh, that's a lot more. Well, it's actually pretty much the same as it was for the students, because 84% said, yes, it should actually invite you to step out of your comfort zone. So we're going to talk a bit more about this topic, and we've invited Yvonne van der Pol today, who is going to lead this discussion. And Yvonne has many years of experience abroad, in different cultures, between different peoples. But she is currently training a lot of professionals here in the Netherlands. And she is a developmental sociologist and an interculturalist. She has a lot of baggage on how to deal with each other's blind spots and biases. So please give a warm welcome to Yvonne.
Okay, now you all hear me? Yeah, so it's much more easy for me not to shout out. Well, thank you for coming, and thank you also, Sanne, for introducing me. Wonderful to hear that. And doing good. That's what we're going to talk about in the next 45, 50 minutes, and talk about with each other, because that's the most crucial point. But I will give a short intro, of course, on the topic, as far as I understand the topic, because I think there's so many angles to look at it. Well, and Sanne, you already introduced me, so thank you. Maybe I say one thing about my academic background here. It's developmental sociologist, but it started with a study in Leiden called Sociology for the Non-Western Societies, and then it became development sociology. And now we're also thinking about, is that the right wording? Development of whom, what, why? So, and that's interesting to look at that. I'm working at many fields. I'm not going to hinder you with that, because Sanne already said that. But the topic today, doing good in context. And starting with those two words, what is good? Just the word good. What is it? Who defines it? So in what context, what is good? And imagine internationally, globally, talking about the global south in one of the examples that you call. And then doing good. Apparently there's something about doing, acting, moving. There is something, but then what will you do? And where, with whom, when, how? Many questions come in, and maybe you should refrain from doing when you think about the good. So here's already the back and forward between those two. And also ensuring, and here's the sustainability question, that the outcome of your doing good is actually good. So that's the long term, but also the long term for the people you work with. And it's very nice that many people say, well, doing good, I don't mainly do it for myself, but there might also be something in it for you, because usually it also gives us a good feeling. So there's an inner motivation, which is fine. We're all humans. And that's also the angle I would like to take a little bit today. And we start with a small video clip and we just check the sound. So I hope it's just going to work properly.
Here at Africa Corp, we are not just about business. We care about people. It is important to our brand to make sure that we give back to those who are less fortunate than us. When I first heard of Radiate, I didn't know that so many people in Norway were suffering. So today, I'm introducing the board to a new project that I know everyone is going to be excited about. I am very excited. Imagine a world with no sun, with no warmth, without smiles. That is a reality for the people of Norway. I turned the air conditioning on full today. Can you feel it?
Yes.
That is just a small taste of what they are facing.
Let's just not forget about Brexit. It's affecting the whole Europe. They need us now, more than ever.
And Africa Corp has the technology to make their lives better. That is why we are teaming up with a local charity, Radiate 2.0, by us, Africa Corp, to be the face of our campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Breezy. Hey, Breeze, my brother. Hey.
I'm pretty sure that flag is from Denmark.
What about powering the heaters? Do they have capacity?
I heard they're running out of oil. It could be a problem.
I'm pretty sure they use
The
hydro.
new radiators will be powered by solar panels, giving them warmth throughout the year.
Even in the dark winters.
As well as making them much greener for the environment.
We should add that to our logo. Climate change is a huge issue right now. We should let people know we are doing our part.
They also have a silence noise filter to deter against predators.
Predators. Like polar bears.
No. They have a problem with wolves now.
Oh, I hear they're roaming the streets and they don't know how to control them.
Really?
What about the rain?
Yes, it is as bad as the snow.
We should throw some umbrellas as well.
Most importantly, we have social media pages to show that we are doing our part to stop this epidemic.
It's starting to sound like this is becoming more about us than it is about the Norwegians.
No. We don't do that here.
When do we start?
The radiators are ready for shipping. All we have to do is load them on the plane. Winter is coming. We are going to spread some warmth, spread some smiles, and say yes to Radiate 2.0 by Africa Corp. I think we're going to change a lot of lives. I have a hope that one day no one will be cold in Norway.
Association on international development, and they have great other clips. Challenge your perceptions. Donate your stereotypes. Stereotypes harm dignity. That's the core of their clips. And there's again, and I want to make the loop with Liliane Ploemen. Some of you might know her, former Minister of International Trade and International Development. And in the time that she was minister, she talked with many counterparts, colleagues all over the world, of course. I was in one of her lectures many years ago, and then she was very open with a 200 large audience. And she said, suddenly I realized that when I sat around the table with an African leader, I did not start with the same opening question I had used with my associate from Great Britain. Why did I ask my English colleague what he thought thought about the global economy. At that time, a very huge issue, the bank crisis, but not my Ethiopian colleague. And there she said, I asked about, what do you need? What are the problems right now in your country? And this was an amazing moment. She caught herself in the moment and thought, what is this? So she actually tackled an implicit association, catching our biases. And we as humans, we have a lot of biases. And that's, well, good to know, we all have it. So that's just something to reassure, we all have it. And I'm going to take you a little bit further into how our mind works, because there is this connection with doing good. Because with the best of intentions, we want to do good, but yet there is also a mechanism that might hinder it. Thinking fast and thinking slow. Whom of you know about this Nobel Prize winning book of Daniel Kahneman? Yeah. And title is Thinking Fast and Slow, and it is actually about the dual processing of mind. That's how we process our thoughts. And mainly we think we are in control. That's what we think. And especially people who have studied and doing mind work, we think we are analytic, and we are. And we are conscious problem solvers, and we are slow, effortful thinkers. Right now you're attentively listening, processing, agreeing, disagreeing. So that's the attentive mind at work. And at the same time, there's also the intuitive mind, because they work as tandem. And what is the intuitive mind? That's the moment when somebody would walk around here all of a sudden, and we all notice, although you're still listening, but you do notice. And the intuitive mind is always on. It's never tired. And that's the issue with the attentive mind. Our brain needs a lot of energy, so we cannot keep up with thinking. And then we sort of slow down, and what we do is we go on the unconscious autopilot. And that's a super powerful machine. It helps us through life. That's also very easy when we cross the street. Although we're talking with our neighbor, a very intense, serious discussion, we notice that's a car coming or a cyclist. And we know we have to step back and not cross the sidewalk at that moment. So it's very fast, it's automatic thinking, it's unconscious, it's always on. But what's also always on, that's the fact that we sort of jump to conclusions, that we're sloppy thinkers in a way. We have a lot of biases. And so these are the quick judgments. We immediately have an opinion, an assumption. And because it goes so quick, do we catch it? Are we aware? And that is interesting to look at from another angle. How many biases are there? Well, here are two guys, they really dove into it, cognitive psychologists, and they found 188. Well, since it's a very light room, maybe I can pass on these copies, because that would be handy. Here you go, because then you see it at the same time, because the projection is not so good. And it's not about those 188, it's only about the impression that we have a huge amount of biases. And it's interesting that you all, with your attentive minds, dive into this piece of paper right now. That's super. What you see, and you see it on your paper, is that it has 4 corners. And those corners are actually the organizing principles in our mind, in this cognition, around those biases. So I start with the left-hand corner, and there you see something like, what should we remember? Well, our brain has a very limited, capacity actually to remember. We forget a lot. So what we remember, we should be well aware what we want to remember in a way. And this comes from, evolutionary biology. So what we do, and this happens very quickly, we discard specifics to form generalities. For instance, stereotyping. But more sneaky is implicit associations. It's all these notions that we have. Stereotyping, usually we are more aware of it, but implicit associations are like Liliana Plume said. All of a sudden I realized I had never noticed it before. And what we also do, we favor simple looking options over complex, ambiguous problems. Although many of us do have a specialization in a certain field, we know things are complex, and yet our mind sort of teases us, and we like the simple one. We know it's complex, but then you can hear things like, well, let's put the full Sahara full with solar panels. Not thinking about there could be any people living there, there's various countries, tensions between those countries, what kind of geography does it have? But these options come to mind, and limited ability to remember with a couple of biases that I just want to highlight to give you an impression how the mind works. In the other corner, you see the wording, too much information. Well, also this Fringe Festival agenda. What do you choose? It's amazing. There's so much to choose. The whole day we have too much information. So how do we deal with that information? And apparently we notice things already primed in memory or are repeated often. The mere exposure effect is how it's called. For instance, the ones of us already saw the performance of Omid is different than the ones who go next. It's a priming in a way. And also we are drawn to details that confirm our own existing beliefs. If Omid said something that you say, oh yes, that's right. There's this, well, reassurance in a way. And we think, oh yes, that's what we believe. It's a combination of selective perception and the confirmation bias. That's also where we like to be. And there's also, the brain is relatively lazy in a way. And then, and this is very interesting, dealing with doing good internationally, the global south, or doing good to your neighbors or people whom you think are, well, deserve to do good, is how do we make meaning of things? And often we need to make judgments or interpretations based on limited information. So what we do, we fill in the characteristics from stereotypes, from generalizations, prior histories, and also we imagine things and people we're familiar with or fond of as better. And here is the huge thing, us and them. We know us, our groups, much better than them, they. And whether it's the soccer team, whether it's your neighborhood, another neighborhood, or rivaling neighborhoods or rivaling soccer teams, us, them. So that's a huge divide, and that also comes from just from biology, evolutionary biology. We lived in small groups back then, and our brain structure is still sort of coded in that way. Whom can we trust? And we trust a relatively small group, people who are the in-group. And that's why we have to do a huge effort to closely look to the out-group. And what we do in the heat of the moment, we think they are more the same with each other. We have a lot of diversity, and we notice that more so. They all look the same. Well, I don't recognize faces. Those are all those kind of things that come from the not enough meaning and the out-group homogeneity bias. They are more homogeneous, and the in-group heterogeneity bias. And that's very interesting when dealing with others. And it can be any other. And of course, in all directions, vice versa. I just want to give you a taste of it, and this is the fourth corner. We need to act fast with uncertainty. Not necessarily, but apparently our brain sometimes really wants to make decisions, and we have to do something. And to act, we must be confident we can make an impact and feel what we do is important. That is something also deeply, well, within our system. And there is something like in that corner over the overconfidence effect. Sometimes we value what we can do ourselves as better actually than how we perform. And also there's another one, we notice flaws in others more easily than flaws in ourselves. So it's an interesting thing how we do that. And for instance, Sanne, you named the white savior effect. there's something like an overconfidence. We can make it, we can do it. In combination with the us, them, and with implicit associations, that's how those things can come about. So the huge, well, question mark actually is, knowing this, or at least having a sort of little glimpse of how this works, what do we do? And just to sort of summarize a little bit, we call it everyday bias. We all have it, it's there, and it's also good. These are the judgments, the perceptions that we rely on in everyday life. It's fantastic that we have this autopilot. That's how we will navigate through life. That's wonderful. And our brain is in a way a predictive machine that constantly anticipates, evaluates, judges, approaches, avoids. So that's super helpful. And at the moment that there is something that we need to be alert, there we have the attentive mind. So it's a very fantastic mechanism. But we are guided by intuitive judgments, motivational urges that we are only partially conscious of. And especially when it comes to in-group, out-group, stereotyping, there's of course the issue. That's where we want to tackle something. So here's like one-liner. Bias is natural, that's correct, but it's not necessarily desirable. There are more things natural. Cancer, for instance, is natural, but also it's not desirable. So we want to do something with unconscious bias as far as we can because it's unconscious. So don't exaggerate in a way in tackling it because it's not always that easy. And that brings me actually to you, to exchanging groups, because I've thrown this all at you. And the most wonderful is to just take out whatever came up, but not only from this talk, but also from the ones who've already seen Omid. And exchanging group on the concept of doing good. How do you do good? What do you want to do? What are your experiences? But also, maybe you want to share an experience or a blooper even of an action where you wanted to good, but yet it's turned out differently. Like Plume a little bit said, oof, it took me many years to come there. And we all have these moments that we think, oh, wow, that was a stereotype. That was an implicit notion. What biases, blind spots, implicit biases were at play in that experience? Or what biases do you recognize in your own thinking in general? Is there something now that we're thinking about it that you find? And what could help you to get beyond bias? Can you recall a moment where you sort of did that? What would you need? Knowledge, attitude, skills, anything else? Well, there's a full house of 3 questions, but many more in one. So may I first just invite you to stand up and make groups of 3. And the comfort zone would be to go with the person you came the room with. But I would ask you to find somebody else, to find other partners, maybe people you don't know yet, because that would be very nice and interesting to see what kind of conversation you get there. And start from 1, go to 2, go to 3. And I'm sure you stay with 1 and have good conversations. And I walk around for any other questions that pop up, of course. So please just stand up, walk in the room, make yourself convenient, take one of those wooden benches along and just sit and enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's very important to come to events like these because they help you reflect a lot on things that you don't usually have the time to sit and think about. And it was really nice to kind of listen to other people's experiences about biases and pinpoint where I have my own biases, because as I said, they're not things that I'm usually aware about. So very thought-provoking conversations were had, and I recommend coming to talks like these.
I have learned from this talk that a lot of times we try to internalize our biases and that we try to react on it as a reflection on ourselves. But it can also be a good thing to express it and have a talk about it with someone and share the experiences of the bias that you're having.
Okay. And some of you are still within the conversation. It's hard to get loose. It would be interesting to hear a couple of insights or reactions from the groups. Is there any group who want to share a story or an insight how to go beyond bias? And now it's completely silent. Eh? It's wonderful. Yes, wonderful.
We had lovely conversation from one end of the spectrum to the other end, but we came a little bit to the conclusion that having biases is not always a problem, and of course we discussed all the biases that we felt or the bloopers that we had, but the mental note to ourselves that we are aware of having those when we are thinking them or when we are is maybe the first step towards a more inclusive or a more better society.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. No, like I said, bias is natural. And they're also supportive biases in a way. But they can be very tricky and then they can be subtle and small and yet lead to, and that's of course where it becomes problematic, exclusion or stereotyping, or when it's in action, in discrimination, in equal treatment, then you know, it's gradual, but then we're on another track, of course. Yeah. So thank you. Who else? Yeah.
We had a conversation about dealing with biases, and that a lot of times when you think of yourself, oh, I have a bias of someone, you tend to keep it for yourself and train yourself like, okay, I shouldn't do that again, etc. But it could also be really nice to just actually talk about it with the person, and maybe that person also has a bias of you.
Yeah. Super. Yeah. And you have experience with that, having this dialogue?
Well, I don't think with biases, but more in general that I try to just speak my mind more often.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can be like an emotional attachment to it, and then you just prefer to not say anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's better to just try and keep talking with people.
That's very good. No, it's wonderful to keep the dialogue and have dialogue, but yet talking about I had a bias about you is also subtle, and yeah, you have to be very, well, how you say it? Well, at least have a notion whether you can do that. And when it's cross-culturally, yeah, addressing this is also can be very uncomfortable, but we can be pretty sure that we have biases back and forward. Sometimes it also, yeah, makes the air fresh again because you can talk about things. Yeah. Any other type of conversation in the groups? Yeah, Nienke.
I think we had quite a nice one at the end, actually, when we said, like, oh, we didn't even talk about biases. Because then we found out that there was 3 Dutch-speaking people in a group and one from Bulgaria, this guy. And then we, as Dutch people, usually automatically switch to English because it's easier and it's nice and everyone feels good. But maybe it's better to just speak Dutch because you speak Dutch and we speak Dutch, and then you can learn Dutch and everything. But that's maybe the better way, but it's also the harder way because you need to be patient, and it might be hard for you to speak Dutch. It might be difficult for us to adjust our language. Maybe we should try that more often.
Maybe we should, and there's a lot of things about reflection, or should we? And this is, going beyond bias. It's not easy. You cannot always do it, but self-reflection, talking about it, maybe we should. But those kind of moments when that pops up in your head, usually that's the intuitive mind. Pop, something pops up, and there you can capture it. But of course, you cannot reflect all the time. So of course, things happen again. And I was asked, what is your personal blooper? And I'm happy to share it because actually I had prepared it, but I forgot when talking through. And that was one rainy day in The Hague where I lived. And of course, you have the streets with the train tracks. And then in a circle, I really hit the track and I fell with my bike. And that was a bad fall, and I was really dizzy. And I thought, oh my gosh, did I break anything? Is there anything? And then I heard this very nice, I was laying on the street for quite a while, and I heard this very nice male voice. Are you okay? Is it all right with you? Please take your time. And it was so reassuring, so heartwarming to have somebody there. And then finally I could open my eyes. And I was like, and that was an inner reaction I can still recall today. And what was it? This person was full with tattoos. And apparently I had never been aware that there was something. I had some notion about persons with so many tattoos, but there was a huge eye here and many others. And so there was like this, I could feel it in my body, like a response. That was this implicit notion. And apparently I had a lot of unconscious notions and views on people with tattoos that really didn't match the frame of being empathetic and kind and nice. Well, we didn't have a dialogue. The dialogue was mainly about, okay, I can stand again and thank you. And I really thanked him. But it was a huge lesson in, yes, it can be so unconscious, super unconscious, and only at some moment you can touch it. Well, it was about doing good, of course, tonight as overall theme. And it was just a small intervention to rethink doing good in many ways, and also personally, because it usually starts with ourselves and also with our thinking and our mind. And maybe you think, oh, well, doing good, it can be tricky, but please be good, do good and stay good, because that's what makes the world a better place. And yet, at the same time, we have to reflect a bit. First of all, about our intentions. Is it really about the other? Is it also about me? And also that is not necessarily wrong, but when you really write your whole LinkedIn page full of everything you do for the other and actually it's about you, well, think about it. And rethink also the hidden effects of doing good. And then it's maybe the overall scope, of course. Long-term for local communities or from whomever, if you work one-on-one. What are the hidden effects? And understand your mind at work. And that's what we just discussed. We have many blind spots, we have biases, and then all of a sudden say, oh wow, your Dutch is so great. And then this person says, well, actually, my mom is Dutch. I always spoke Dutch at home. Right. Yeah, so we have those blind spots and biases. And please keep an eye on them and do good, well informed and with the right attitudes, and off you go, I would say. So, well, thank you very much for your attention and being here, and also your willingness to discuss this and do this together with people you didn't know before. So I hope it was also nice and pleasant for you to do so. Yeah. So that's it. Are there any questions? I don't know if we have time to take questions. And otherwise, you are in the final position. Yeah.
Are there situations in which biases can be useful in any way?
Say it again?
Are there situations in which biases can be useful?
yeah, it can be self-protection, I think. So then they can be useful. Yeah, yeah.
I think we also have to round off.
Seen the time.
Seeing
Yeah.
the
Okay.
time.
So then we do it like this.
Yeah.
Wish you success. Thanks. Goodbye. Yeah. And I hand over to Sanne.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Thank you all for all the nice conversations and your attendance. Yvonne already has some.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now to the final one.
Oh,
Yeah.
the final one. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. It's just another program from Studium Generale. It's at Theater de Veste, 12th of June. It's about mental health, and it's a mixer, so there's food, which is always good. But thank you for attending. Thank you for joining. Have a lot of fun at Omid afterwards, and I hope that you liked being here tonight. And I hope that you take something along from this evening. And have a very great night. Thanks.